This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
This lecture is on chapter 10 of the paper F5 lecture notes, which is risk and uncertainty. And it's another area like several earlier ones where, although there are only 3 pages here, there is quite a bit we need to get through, so I will break up the lecture, several shorter ones rather than one great long one. And before we go through an example proper, let me explain very quickly what the basic problem is. You've no need to sort of copy this down, but just a very little baby example. Suppose I gave you a choice of, I don't know, maybe 2 machines. You know, we're going to make a new product, 2 machines available, both do the same job, if the cost the same. And so we've estimated what the profits each year will be. And if I choose machine A, it'll give me 10,000 a year. Machine B would give me 20,000 a year. And if I said, which one will you choose? Well, I think anybody but a complete idiot would choose B. However, suppose I said this. Suppose I said, okay, this new product, there are these 2 machines we could choose. But when we came to look at the estimates of the profits we'd make, it depends on how successful this new product is. And maybe I tell you that if the product isn't so successful and therefore there is low demand, then okay, A gives 10,000 a year, B gives 20. But it could be that the product turns out to be very successful, demand's high, and if that happens, A will give us 50,000, obviously more. B will give us 40,000. Well, now we've got a problem. You see, if I know demand's going to be low, I'd choose B, no question. But if I knew demand was going to be high, I'd choose A. But we don't know. We've got to make our decision today. We're going to buy one of them. But it's only later we'll find out how much profit we're going to make. So would you choose A or would you choose B? Now, I can't hear an answer, but I wouldn't expect an answer, because there's no rule here. There is no best way of making a decision like this. One thing I might do is this. I might say to myself, well, there's quite a lot of money involved there. If I pick B, then of course I'm guaranteed to get at least 20,000. I may only get 20, and I may get a bit more, 40. And I'll pick B, because if I picked A, I might only get 10. And you can't argue with me. If that's the way I feel, I'm not greedy. B is bound to give me at least 20. I've lost the chance of getting 50, but also I'm never going to get so little as 10. On the other hand, if these were very small amounts, you know, if this was just $10, $50, $40, 20, small amounts, I might say, oh, go on, I'll pick A. Because if I pick A, we may be lucky and get $50. And all right, I'm not too worried if we only get $10, you know, the money involved is smaller. And again, whatever you might do, you cannot argue with it. How we make that sort of decision depends on the attitude to risk, as I'll say more about as we go through, but the attitude to risk of the person making the decision. Am I prepared to risk only getting 10 or not? And it depends on the amount of money involved. Those 2 approaches I just took, they're 2 of the ways which we'll go through in the full example in a minute. But there is no best way. You can never be expected to say, this is the best way of making it. There's no best decision. You're expected to be aware of, as you'll see in a second, 4 different approaches that people may choose to use and it's very much learning rules, but you cannot be asked which is best. Anyway, that was just the lead into it, but you see, there we are. That's what we mean by risk and uncertainty, that clearly there is a problem deciding because we don't know what the outcome is going to be. Let's now, though, look at a full question, a full example. If you turn over on example 1 on the next page, read it with me, and then we'll start working through it. John has factory capacity of 1,200 units a month. So whatever happens, that's the most we can make. Units cost him $6 each to make, and the normal selling price is $11. So we make $5 a unit profit. However, the demand per month is uncertain and is as follows. So the demand might only be 400, it might be 5, it might be 7, it might be 9. It's uncertain. We don't know how many customers will want. We've been approached by a customer who's prepared to contract to a fixed quantity per month at a price of $9. Now remember, the units cost $6 to make, so this customer will only make $3 a unit profit. But if we can sign a contract with him, then we are guaranteed to make that many sales. He's prepared to sign a contract to purchase 300, 500, 700 or 800 units a month. So you'll sign a contract for one of those levels, and in fact part B, when we come to it, says, what quantity should we sign the contract for? Do we want to sign the contract for 300 or do we want to sign? It's our choice, but that's what we're going to have to decide. And as I say, although we make less profit per unit on what we sell to that customer, the benefit is we've got guaranteed sales. We can vary production levels during the month up to the maximum capacity. Remember, we can only produce 1,200 units. But if for whatever reason we only want to produce 1,000, no problem. But we can't afford any unsold units. So there's no point in producing 1,200 if I only sell 1,000. Because the other 200 left, I couldn't carry them forward and hope to sell them next month. Fine. Part A, and always the sort of part A to these, says calculate all possible profits that could result. Well, what's going to happen here? Think about it. The profit we are going to end up with will depend on two things. It'll depend on how many we actually sign the contract for, and that's our choice. Either we sign it for 300 or we sign it, but depending on what we choose, that'll affect the profit. And also, whichever contract size we choose, the level of the normal demand will affect our profit. And so what we're going to do is set up a table showing all the different things that could happen. And I mentioned after, you can set up your table any way you want, doesn't matter. But what I'm going to do is do a sort of grid, a matrix. I'm going to say, well, one thing that affects it is the contract size. And we haven't yet decided, so it might end up being 300, it might be 500, it might be 700, it might be 800. Remember, the contract size is something we're going to decide. It's our choice. However, whatever contract size we end up choosing, the profit will also be affected by the level of normal demand. You know, if we sign a contract for 300, for example, we'll sell them 300, but we can produce lots more. So we'd also sell to normal demand, but that could be 400, 500, 700, or 900. And remember, the normal demand, that we cannot choose, that is uncertain. there's risk. And so a combination of those two mean in fact there are 16 possible outcomes that could result. And we've got to run through and calculate what the profit would be for each combination. Now you see in a minute, this actually gets very repetitive. So once you've got going, it should be very quick. To talk through all 16 at length, I'll be here all night. I'll do 3. I'm talking through them properly. I really do suggest that you then pause the lecture and see if you can do the rest yourself, and then unpause. Then I'll quickly put in the remaining figures. First of all, I'll do this one, A. Suppose the contract we signed for 300 and normal customers want 400. Well, for A, therefore, contract 300. And remember, units sold on the contract, they pay 9, the cost is 6, we make $3 a unit profit, so a total of 900. In addition, normal customers want 400. And normal customers give us $5 a unit profit, sell for 11, cost 6. And so, if we choose 300, if normal's 400, in total we'll be selling 700, we'll produce 700 units, and the total profit will end up at 2,900. All right, I said I'll do 3. What about this one? Well, we've signed the contract for 700. So we'll sell 700 to the contract, and they give us $3 a unit. To normal customers, they want 500, and they give us profit of $5 a unit. And so, if that happened, we'd be getting 4,600. Let me just do one more in full. And be careful here. I'm going to have space, so C. C, we signed a contract for 700, and normal customers want 900. Well, remember, if we sign the contract, we have to produce those 700. They give $3 to 100. We've no choice if we sign the contract for 700. Normal customers want 900, but here we have a problem. Because to sell 900 to them would mean producing 1,600 in total, and we can't. Our maximum capacity is 1,200 units. We have to give 700 up to the contract person, but we're only able to produce another 500 for normal customers. We will sell 500 to them. The other customers will have to turn away. But we can't produce more than 1,200 in total. Well, normal customers, that earns us $5 a unit. Total 4,600. So make sure you've got those 3. I hope you have. I hope that's made sense. Rewind if you need. If you have got all 3, then I really do suggest you fill in the others yourself. Just check, for heaven's sake. And then start press the resume button on the recording. Because I'm going to whiz through quickly a filling the others. I'm not going to talk through the workings in detail. So if you come to check and you've got any wrong, just check it's not an arithmetic mistake. If you've really no idea where you went wrong, then you'll have to ask the tutor for it. Anyway, I assume that all of you watching this did pause and have now resumed. And so let's see if I can fill in the others without wasting too much time. On the 300 row, an extra 100, 5, 3,400, 4,400, 5,400. On the 500 row, if normal's 400, 206, 3,500, 4,000, 5,000, 5,000. The 700 row, 4,100, 46, 46, 46. And finally, the 800 row, extra 100, 300, 4,400. Yes, those are correct. That last row, incidentally, I shouldn't need to say if you were clear about the earlier ones, but if you sell 800 on the contract, since we can only produce 1,200, we can only sell 400 to normal customers, whatever their level of normal demand. All right, well, that's part A, and although it is repetitive, you know, once you've understood what's happening, it's then just speed. But the wording can sometimes be quite a challenge. You know, I think I've worded it reasonably simply, and of course I was here to talk through it. But it can get quite a bit messier, not the actual arithmetic, but the working out of what's actually happening. It's a problem. Part B, though, is where we come to make decisions. I'll make a start here, but then, as I said, we are going to pause. I don't want that to be too long. Part B is making decisions, and it says determine for what quantity John should sign the contract under each of the following criteria. And those four I've listed: expected value, Maximin, max regret. Those are the four that you need to learn for the exam. And you'll see as we go through that certainly at least two of them are very easy. It is just learning rules. And this is where you've got to be able to get good marks, because you see, even if you've got your profits wrong in part A for some reason, part B you'd still get full marks if you'd applied the rules correctly on your figures. So I'm going to go through these four. You must learn them. But I am, for reasons that hopefully I'll make clear later, I'm going to go through them in a different order. I'm first of all going to do the second one, which is Maximin. And watch what I do. It's actually a bigger version of something I did when I did that little introductory example. Remember, we've got to choose which contract size we want. Is it going to be 300, 500, 700, 800? So for each of the choices, remember again, the choice is either 300 units, 500, 700, or 800. Well, we look at our table and we say in each case, what's the worst that can happen? The worst outcome. And if you look back at the profit table, for 300 units, depending on normal demand, we'll either get 2,900 or 34 or 44 or 54. Yes, 54. What's the worst that can possibly happen? Well, the worst is the least profit. It's 2,900. So the worst outcome, if we chose that one, is that we get 2,900. We might get more, but we can't possibly get less. On the other hand, what if we contracted for 500? It's either 3.5, 4, or 5. Well, again, the lowest profit is 3,500. Similarly, 700, the worst outcome is a profit of 4,100. If we contract for 700, I do apologise. Contract for 700, we're guaranteed to get at least 4-1. We might get more, we wouldn't get any less. And finally, what if we contracted for 800? Oh, the worst outcome, 4,400. And so there is the worst outcome for each of the 4 choices. We choose whichever is the best of those worst outcomes. So the best of those worst outcomes is this one. And therefore, that would be our decision. We'll sign a contract for 800 units. And you can see why it's called Maximin. The worst outcome was the minimum profit in each case. And then we pick the best or the maximum of those minimum. And there we are. So it's a really easy one. I could, in fact, you can write the answer almost straight down just by looking at the profit table. But be careful, the examiner, unless it's an MCQ, the examiner isn't just going to want an answer, or the answer is 800. You are expected to be able to explain why it's called Maximin. And I think just writing an answer down the way I've done there is better than having to then write an essay. Before I leave it, somebody who, remember I did say earlier there's no best way of making a decision. This is one way you might choose to make the decision, but it does depend in practice on the amount of money involved and the attitude to risk. Well, we say that somebody who uses this approach is a risk avoider. It's quite common to be asked, what's the attitude to risk of somebody who takes Maximin approach? They're a risk avoider. We could get more if you look back at the table, but we'd be risking getting less. Here we've avoided the risk. Okay, so that was a nice easy start. I think I've spoken long enough. I'll pause this lecture. Well, I'll finish this lecture, and the next lecture, same example, but we'll carry on and look at the other 3 approaches to making the decision.